Well, welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the College Super 7 edition, and I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Along with me is host Vincent Turner and our producer engineer, Logan Landers. And Logan, Vincent, I want to start today with a simple little question. We're starting to read more and more about how the NCAA, the ratings, the ranking system, everything is starting to come together. There's only a couple weeks left in the season. Do you think they got it right with this 12-team playoff format? And do you think there'll be any tweaks that we're going to see in the next couple of years? I know we're a little early. I'm not trying to jeopardize the decision that they're making, but I've just got some questions that I want to ask. I don't know everything, but we have to have it all planned out, don't we, to where we know who's going to be playing, when they're going to be playing, how it's going to be televised, how I can get access to this. They've made a path, and do you think it's as good as it possibly can get? Logan, if you don't mind, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, now we're starting to see, week by week, now that they've started releasing the college football playoff rankings, just how much wins and losses really do matter. Prime example, look at Georgia. They got beat by Ole Miss this past week. They were the number 3 seed, and now they're on the outside looking in. Basically, they're number 12. So they had a major loss. Same with Miami. Miami last week was the number 4 seed. They lost to an unranked Georgia Tech program. They fall to 9. So the tricky thing, too, about this is there's a lot of SEC schools in this top 12, and there's a lot of different equations going on in terms of, all right, will Georgia beat this team? Will Ole Miss beat this team? Oh, and Texas beat both of them. It's just confusing right now, but there's still a couple weeks left of play. But I definitely think this does need a little bit of tweaking because to me, I'm trying to figure out how they are sorting these, right? Because if it's just by strength of schedule or win-loss record, well, you could argue, okay, well, Indiana's undefeated. They're 10-0. How come they're not a 2 seed right now? Because they haven't lost a game. BYU is also undefeated. How come they're not up there? Then you pull it, strength of schedule. You play in, how many ranked teams have they faced? And it's just tricky right now. And it was back with the 4. Don't get me wrong. It was tricky with the college football 4. But now you've just got so many other factors into it. And I don't know what they can do exactly right now to hone that and to make it, fine tune it. We're kind of in the early stage of it, obviously, since it's the first year they've implemented it. But I'm still trying to get and grasp the concept of, okay, well, if you're a 3 seed, but then you lose to a team who was in the top 20 last week in terms of Ole Miss, then how does that drop you all the way back to 12? But then if you're Miami, who was undefeated, and then you lose to an unranked Georgia Tech team, how does that only drop you, I believe, 4 spots? I'm just trying to get that scenario and a bunch of other ones figured out right now. But all I know for one thing, Harper, right now Oregon's number 1, and they're hoping to keep that going into the college football top 12.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up some very interesting points. Before we move on, Vincent, your thoughts. What do you think about the way that the playoff right now is being given to us piece by piece, bit by bit? Are you happy with everything the way that it is right now, or are there some questions that you may have as well?
Right now, I don't have any questions. I love what they're doing. I hope that they expand it to 16 teams because if you go back to the history of college football, I'm only talking about my time on this great face of earth here in America. There was so many teams that got left out. There was teams in the 60s that were voted national champions before they even played in the bowl game. Then we had 2 BCS teams from the beginning. There was a lot of politics, but right now I think they got it correct. Are they perfect? Of course not, because you're going to have some people on the committee that's going to be political. They're going to be from the Midwest. They're going to be from the South. So they're going to be more or less geared to their teams. But 12 teams, I think they got it right. With all the conference champions, and then the Boise States of the world has got a chance. The Tulanes of the world got a chance. When you look at it overall, I think college football is in a good state with this college football playoff system that they're doing. 12 teams, I never envisioned that. 4, I never envisioned that. But I think from me being an avid college football fan and watching all these great players over the days of the Simpsons, the Elways, the Mannings, the Nanums, right now college football is at a great level right now because you're going to be able to see all the top teams at a level that you've never seen and all the players that we probably never heard of. Austin Gente, Boise State. Think about if Boise State makes it to the college football playoffs. You don't think the nation is going to want to see him play? Or Colorado? We all know about Deion Sanders, your former teammate, Harper. What are you doing out there in Colorado? I love the system. And I hope they go up to 16 teams. Because now, even though a lot of teams are going to still complain and not getting in, at least we're moving forward and we won't have certain teams evading other certain teams in the systems like they did in the 60s and the 70s. They're just me. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the BCS championship, when they started that about, 15, 20 years ago, it left room for the outsiders to question the system, to say, hey, how come we didn't get in? We were number 5 and you only took the top 4. More recently, I didn't like that you had 5 Power 5 conferences. Yeah, that's why they're called the Power 5, but you only had 4 representatives. So someone was always going to be left out. Mm-hmm. And then you had a weakness in one of the conferences or a strength in the other. You get 2 SEC schools and you don't get any in the other 2 conferences. It was very interesting how they worked this out, but we're going to see. One thing that I will say, Logan, you made a very interesting point about the strength of schedule. I'm just looking at Georgia. We're in Georgia. They're the team here that everybody knows that you got to beat them in order to be, the one with the bragging rights. But they started the season against Clemson, who was nationally ranked. Then they played Alabama in week 4. Alabama was in the top 5. They played Texas, who was number 1, at Texas and at Tuscaloosa in Alabama. Then they just played Ole Miss, and then Tennessee would be their 5th ranked opponent in 10 games. You can't get a harder strength schedule, in my opinion. LSU has they played 4. Texas has played 5 ranked teams, including Michigan at the beginning of the year, who was ranked number 10 when the season first started. And then you just mentioned Miami, who lost to an unranked team. I don't know how you balance that out. If you win, especially early, it's good. But if you win late in the year, that's when it means. So obviously, I don't know if they've got it all figured out. I have a few questions. I sure wouldn't want to be the 13th team if we were only taking 12, but at least 12 is better than 4. I think we all agree on that. Are we pretty fair in terms of 12 is much better than 4?
I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah. Well, do we get it right and make it perfect? It's the NCAA, so we're going to have to wait. Thank you for the debate. We'll have more as this progresses and the season rolls on. But we are in the middle of November. We'll be eating turkey and sweet potato pie here in just a couple of weeks. But before we advance, let's take a moment to pay our respects to 2 great gentlemen that helped the NCAA college football world. We lost John Robinson a couple of days ago, and then Jerry Faust has also passed away. John Robinson, of course, the coach with the USC Trojans, who won a national championship with them in the late 70s. And he also coached the LA Rams. He went back to USC. He coached at UNLV, coached at a high school near the end of his life where he just wanted to be around and coach. Many people will notice that and remember that he and John Madden were great friends, and that he played on an Oregon Rose Bowl team back in 1958. I believe John McKay was coaching there at that time. So there are connectivities all over the place in terms of him, college football, but his place in it. And then Jerry Faust, of course, comes in as a high school coach at Moeller, the Steamrollers, the Moeller High School in Cincinnati. High school coach who was phenomenal, and he gets a job at the University of Notre Dame and has a career there that any high school coach would dream of having, of getting to coach the Fighting Irish. Are you kidding me? So 2 gentlemen. Vincent, I know I just said a lot, but give me your impressions about these 2 guys and their meaning and their place in college football history.
I'm going to start with John Robinson. I remember when he took over the job, I believe in 76 with the mighty USC Trojans out there on the coast of California. And I was a big-time USC fan growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, as everyone knows. And one thing I remember about Mr. Robinson, the talented players he had, Ricky Bell, Vince Evans, and then that 78 team, I consider one of the greatest talented teams ever to split a national championship with Alabama there. Ronnie Lott, Anthony Munoz, Dennis Smith, Paul McDonald, Charles White. Then him going down the road and bringing Marcus Allen, and him becoming a professional coach with the LA Rams. And there was something that I read on social media yesterday. The great Eric Dickerson said, I want to give Coach Robinson all my love, because if it wouldn't been for Coach Robinson, I wouldn't have had the career when I first came in the league with the Los Angeles Rams, and how much he believed in a 22-year-old from Sealy, Texas, to build his offense around me. I want to give much love to John Robinson, prayers and blessings. And I thought that was really outstanding by Eric Dickerson, because, you know, Eric Dickerson is the type of guy that doesn't really be in social media or on TV a lot. I thought that was saying a great thing about a great person. The Jerry Faust. When you look at his time in high school, probably ain't no better high school coach that's had a more successful career. Then him going to Notre Dame and one of the most precious jobs in the country. Things didn't really work out well with him, but one thing I would tell you, you follow your dreams. Coach Faust followed his dreams. He was very successful at Mulder High School in Cincinnati. Then he went over to Notre Dame. And he did produce some good players over there. He came into a tough situation replacing a legend in Dan Devine. But at the end of the day, I got a lot of love and respect for him because he did it the right way. I know after Lou Holtz took over, there was a lot of things. There was a book that came out about the Notre Dame program. I think what was Tarnished Under the Dome. But one thing I read in one of those chapters of the book, even though Jerry Faust, his players might have not been physically strong, or they might not have been as talented during his time in Notre Dame. But one thing I learned in that book, his players loved them, regardless of the record at Notre Dame. We lost two great football coaches, man, and two great legends whose character was flawless at both programs. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, you don't hear about either one of those programs having any type of disparaging words. We don't know about them. They might have happened. I'm not saying it was perfect. I know that a lot of them would like, especially Notre Dame fans, man, we could have won some big. We lost to some teams we've never lost to before. But the character of the coach is always important. You won't mind, Vincent, give me just a second. Lynn Kane, we got to get Lynn on the show. Lynn is the former player at USC, and I remember the '78 game when SC had Keith Van Horn, Brad Buddy, they had Powell, Marvin Powell, Chris Foote, some guy named Anthony Munoz, and Hobie Brenner all blocking. Are you kidding me? And they go to Alabama. And Charles White is running left, running right, all over the place. They get inside the red zone. This is about the late in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hot. It's blazing hot. And so I always ask Lynn, finish the story. Tell it to me one more time. He goes, man, I was so exhausted. And then they gave me the ball. And I get to the 6-yard line. Then they give it to me again. And with outside, and I get to about the 4-yard line. And he's tapping his helmet. He goes, I got to come out. And Coach Robinson's pushing back. He goes, you can stay back in there. Coach, I'm exhausted. He goes, we'll call timeouts, but you're not coming out of the game. We're going to give it to Charlie, and you get the lead block on all of those guys because you're the only one who can do it. And they ended up scoring on that drive. They ended up burning up 2 timeouts, if I remember. But the fact that Coach Robinson, that I don't care, kid. I don't care how tired you are. You're staying in because we need you to help us win. And that was just one of the fun stories that I remember from Lynn himself telling me about him and Coach. They weren't into an argument. They just, man, I'm tired. Let me out. You're staying in. All right. Yeah, please.
One thing I like to say, I want to give Coach Robinson one more kudos. Dun 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 dun. Da, 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 da. Back to you, Harper.
Here we go. All right. Fight on for him. Conquest and Spirit of Troy and everything is a part of it. And thank you, John, and thank you, Jerry, for what you did for the game. You made it better. Thank you so much. Let's look at some of the local action that will be taking place here on 100 Yards of Football. We want to take a look at some teams that are here in the area, and we're going to talk a little bit about Tennessee and Georgia later on, but they play at 7:30. Troy and Georgia Southern. Real quick, Troy's having an off year, but they're not quite where they've been in the past, but Georgia Southern has only one loss in the conference, and they win this ball game. They got two left after that, and Georgia Southern has a chance to be the Eastern champs in the Sun Belt and get to play in the conference championship. So this is a big for Georgia Southern. Obviously, at home it's more important. They still got another game or two on the road, but in the meanwhile, Southern is playing very good football this year. Arkansas State will visit Georgia State. That's a game I'll be at. It's a Center Park Stadium downtown. That's a 5 o'clock start on Saturday. And then Mercer, as their program has grown, they are going to go to Alabama. And Vincent, real quick, this is what we call the money game. Mercer is going to. So then I'd love to, but I want to get out of there safe, and I want to ensure the check clears. Is there anything else that Mercer's going to be doing while they're at Alabama?
I guess just being excited. They're going to be in Tuscaloosa. They're playing a team that's going to eventually make the college football playoffs. It's coming over a big, huge win over LSU. Take all the scenery in, Mercer, enjoy the ride, and make sure you don't get anybody hurt. That's the point I want to make. Make sure you don't get any players hurt and get the check and move on. Alabama is going to be ready to play. If you don't think Caleb DeBoer is rising at another level, I think you might need to have your brain checked. Back to you, Harper. Yes, we have some technical difficulties with Mr. Harper LeBel. Hopefully we will get that situated. Harper, are you back with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You was going in and out. I hear you clearly now, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was just saying that I think it's great that the kids get a chance to make memories. It's not often that you get to play in Tuscaloosa, and whether you're LSU or A&M or even Auburn, it's a special memory that you have, and Mercer will get to enjoy that as well. Sam Houston State will be going to Kennesaw. Kennesaw, of course, with a big win against Liberty a couple weeks ago, but last week with the loss. And then West Georgia and Utah Tech. That will be out in Utah, of course. And then our final game that we're going to look at is West Florida will be taking on the still unbeaten Valdosta State Blazers. That game will be at 7 p.m. So lots of local action, and you can check no one checks the paper anymore. You can check your local papers to find out more. And, if nothing else, take your kids to a ball game. Let them see what college football is all about, even though it may not be at the University of Georgia or at Tech. There's some other great programs that are in the area. And if you get a chance, go check it out. All right, let's look at the Super 7 if we get to it. Vincent, I thank everybody for their patience, but we're going to start today by looking at a couple of teams in the American Athletic, and we haven't spoken yet about Tulane, but they're in the top 25 right now. Their offense is fantastic. They're playing really good football. They're 8-2 right now, and they are undefeated in the conference, and they go to Annapolis, and they take on the 7-2 Navy Midshipmen.
This is a Tulane team that had a coaching change in the offseason. John Summerall is doing an outstanding job. When you look at the Greenway, they got 3 good players that I really love. I like the receiver Mario Williams. I like their linebacker Tyler Grubbs. I want to not butcher his name. Mikael Hughes is an outstanding talent at the running back position. This is a Tulane team that's got people thinking about 1998 when they went undefeated. And they had one Tommy Bowden. And they had a quarterback by the name of Sean King, and how everybody was saying Tulane went undefeated. They should deserve to be in that college football playoff mix, the BCS. I believe it was the first year that Tennessee played Florida State and ended up winning their football game. But there was a lot of people down there in New Orleans was really fighting for Tulane to be one of those teams that played in that championship game. But you got to be impressed with what they're doing down in the NO. And then you're looking at Navy. Blake Hovan. How many times have we mentioned him on the show, Harper? A guy that leads Navy in passing and rushing. One of the most complete football players in the country. Then they got an outstanding football player on the defensive side of the ball named Deshaun Peel, who I think should receive All-American honors at the end of the season. Very interesting football game, Tulane and Navy playing on Saturday.
Here's what captured my attention. There's a couple things. You mentioned Mikael Hughes for Tulane. They are 10th in the nation rushing the ball. They average 227 yards a game. They score 42 points a game. That's fourth in the country. I would never have thought of that. I had to look it up and go, wait a second, these numbers don't make any sense, but they do. Tulane's defense is also, they're only giving up 18 points a game. So you may say that they're in the non-power five, they're playing smaller schools, in retrospect, but their numbers are still amazing. Mekhi Hughes has 13 touchdowns and he's averaging 5.7 yards a carry. He has 212 carries thus far in the season. But Hobart, he's amazing. 11 passing touchdowns. He's got 3 rushing. He averages 6.8 yards per carry. He's both these teams have guys that you have to stop, whether it be Hughes or Horvat. It'll be an interesting dynamic. Navy is number 5 in the country rushing. They average 259 yards per game. So that'll be a game that probably lasts about 2 hours and 5 minutes because both teams are going to be rushing the ball and working the clock in that manner. Our second game that we're going to look at, number 2, Ohio State. They're 8-1. They're 5-1 in the conference. They're going to Northwestern. The reason I brought this one up, Vincent, is because Ohio State, we've talked about them a little bit, but obviously the Buckeyes, if you look at the rest of their schedule, they should handle each of the teams they play, including here this game in Evanston. It's a 12 o'clock start, but Ohio State, they're 11th in scoring, but their defense is what makes the difference for me. Playing against the teams that they have, they're only giving up 10 points a game. They're number 2 in the country defensively. Give me your thoughts about the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Ohio State had a big win last week over Penn State. And bottom line, Ryan Day, the pressure is on. It's national championship or bust. As I said earlier in our earlier shows, Ohio State has got NFL talent on both sides of the ball. What's really been surprising to me about Ohio State is that their quarterback, Will Howard, is starting to play better. He had that buffoon mistake against Oregon, and he took a lot of flack for that. But he's played pretty well over the last couple of weeks. A Pennsylvania kid. Then Jeremiah Smith, Geno Smith's first cousin, the receiver out of Ohio State. I know we've been talking about Ryan Williams over there at Alabama, but I think people need to take game film and look what this young man is doing at Ohio State, the receiver position. And Harper, you brought up the defense. When you look at the Ohio State defense, I'm thinking of Chris Spellman is coming through that door. A.J. Hawk is coming through that door. Jack Tatum is coming through that door. They have played better defense than any Ohio State team I've seen in a while. Caleb Downs, you should know a little bit about him. I think, Harper, you have heard of him. He out there from your area town, here in the metro Atlanta area. Very shocked he transferred from Alabama to Ohio State. But did I think his skill level was going to go down? No way. He is going to the top, one of the best safeties in the country. And Sonny Styles, who we haven't talked about, the linebacker at Ohio State, who leads the team in tackles, he's been a player. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, one thing defensively that really captured my attention, 26 sacks for the Buckeyes. They have 7 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. So turnovers have been a big and key part of their game. But again, they're only giving up 10 points. Where Northwestern, on the other hand, they average only 18. They're 126 in the nation. So they're already struggling. And then you go against a great defense like what you mentioned, Vincent. It could be a blowout. But Northwestern's defense is pretty good. They got 19 sacks, 7 interceptions. They've also got 6 fumble recoveries. So they're good at getting turnovers. Both defenses are good, but I think Ohio State's offense and then just their manpower will be enough to get them by. They should be 9-1 at the end of the day. Next game we're going to look at is Clemson. They're ranked number 17th. Now, Pitt was in it until they lost last week, but Pitt is also 7-2. This game will be what I used to call, Riverfront Stadium. There now it's called Acrisure Stadium. Yep. It's in Pittsburgh, right there on the river. But Clemson comes in. They're 6-1 in the conference. They had that first game lost to Georgia, but with the exception of one bump in the road, I think Clemson has done everything that they need to do to get themselves back where they're in the conversation. A win here against Pitt, I think, should be one of those final nails in the coffin.
Dabo been quiet over there in Clemson this year. Yes, remember, Dabo said he didn't want to go in the transfer portal. Remember, after the first game lost to Georgia, Dabo was taking a lot of heat. Matter of fact, Dabo doesn't even take calls on his call-in show anymore over there at Clemson. But I got a lot of respect for Dabo. He reared the ship. They had that one mess up, 2 weeks ago when they lost to Louisville. That's all right. But they ranked 20th in the college football rankings, and they sitting on the outside. And Cade Klubnik has played pretty well for him. Phil Maffa, running back out of this area, the Metro Atlanta area, Grayson High School, has played pretty well. And Clemson is kind of quiet everybody on the national level. They're 7-2. They're sitting in a good spot. This is a big football game for Clemson because down the road, if they doesn't lose another ACC game, they're going to be playing SMU or Miami in the ACC championship game. And you win that game, you get in the college playoffs. Pitt has surprised everybody on the national level. Eli Holstein, transfer. You know where you transferred from, Harper? I think you know. The University of Alabama. And look how he's played. He's played some really good football over at Pitt. But this is a bigger game for Clemson. I think Clemson is going to go in there and take care of their business like they did against Virginia Tech last week on the road. Bounce back from that Louisville loss in 2 weeks. I think Clemson is headed for the ACC championship game. And I think we're going to be talking about Dabo Swinney in another sentence when the season is over.
Well, bring it back to him. Dabo did make his decision not to go into the portal. And they rushed for 17 touchdowns. They passed for 25. They're in the top 14 in the nation scoring. Defense is 59th. They give up an average of 23 points a ball game. Here's something about Pitt. When I look this up, I go, come on, there's no way. They have 30 sacks, 12 interceptions, and 3 fumble recoveries. So Pitt's defense, you mentioned Holstein, the 62% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. But their defense, they can play there in a city that admires good defense. So it'll be a very interesting game. Pitt is 7-2. They're 3-2 in the conference. And as I said, Clemson is 6-1 in the conference. Big game for both teams. You can't lose, or it might be Vincent's word from last week is elimination. You're done. Your season's over. So we'll see how that goes. Utah is the next game that we're going to look at. They travel to Boulder, and they're going to take on the Buffaloes. Utah is 1-5 in the conference, Vincent. They're only 4-5 overall. So all of their conference losses are, just devastating this year for what the Utes have been doing. You flip that record around. CU is 5-1. They're 7-2 overall. This game is going to be at 12 o'clock at Folsom Field. What's exciting about this game for you?
Oh, come on, Harper. It's your former teammate. Can you believe what he's done at Colorado? They won 1 game 2 years ago. Now, when they got out of the box real well last year, everybody was saying, wow, what is Colorado doing? But we really know Deion Sanders didn't have his plan in place. We know he didn't have the players ready. You know, he had to do a little more tweaking. Coming into this season, I'll be honest with you. I thought Colorado would improve, but I thought there'd be a 6-5 team or maybe a 7-6 team. And I thought there'd be a bowl team. But be ranked 17th in the college football playoff rankings and got a shot realistically to get into that 12-team field, I did not see that. And I would say this. We know what Shedeur Sanders is a great player. We know Travis Hunter is a great player. But I'm going to tell you what I've been more impressed with for Colorado. The acquisition of their D-line coach, Warren Sapp. That's what has really got Colorado ranked 17th in the country. They play on the defensive side of the ball. B.J. Green II, 5 sacks on the year, and an ability for Colorado to play defense. And their offensive line has improved some throughout the season. I don't know where Colorado is going, but I'm going to tell you this. They are starting to be a dangerous football team. And Deion Sanders' name is one of the hottest coaches' names out there if you go to social media. I've heard rumors of Auburn, LSU, Florida State. I know this might sound crazy. A real strong rumor with the Dallas Cowboys. I would love to be in his position. Now to Utah. I'm not going to be hard on Kyle Willingham because I said early in our earlier shows he doesn't have his quarterback, Cam Rising. That guy was a huge part of what Utah has done. Isaac Wilson has done an animal job, but he's had 8 interceptions on the year. That's Zach Wilson's little brother. Utah has just not been the team with Cam Rising under center as they were in the years moving the football through the air and on the ground. But I still like that football player they got on the defensive side of the ball, Landon Barton, who I think is the best linebacker in the country. Utah's 4-5. They 1-5 on the year. They're going in there playing with house money. Now we're going to see the Colorado team that's getting a lot of smoke coming out of Boulder. Man, can you believe it? We talking about Deion Sanders in a program that won one game 2 years ago. To you, Harper.
Yeah, you mentioned Utah and Cam Rising. Isaac Wilson is only a freshman. He's thrown for 55% of his passes. He's got 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, but you mentioned those 8 interceptions. Utah just struggles to score. They're only averaging 22 points a game. That's 108th in the nation. But defensively, they only give up 17th. They're just outside the top 10 at number 11. So they've had some issues right there. Their game last week against BYU, Mark Harlan, their athletic director, he was fined $40,000. That's almost double the highest fine that they've ever had previously for an athletic director making comments about the officiating. Even though they're kind of new to the conference, they were not. You can't make any comments about the officials, man. You just can't do it. And that's 40 grand out of his pocket. Like I said, the previous fine was 25. So be interesting how he does that. You mentioned Warren Sapp, and I'd like to comment very quickly if I could. CU's defense, they got 29 sacks. They've got 7 interceptions and 9 fumble recoveries. They're hitting you, and they're hitting you hard. Offensively, they can score. They're averaging 32 points a game, but their defense is so much better. They get the ball back. They still give up some points, don't get me wrong, but they're going to turn the ball over. They've done a great job. Shedeur Sanders has 24 touchdowns in the air. He has an additional 4 rushing. So do the math. 28 touchdowns total, 6 interceptions. And Travis Hunter has 69 receptions right now. He's got 9 touchdowns. He's averaging 12.4 per reception. He's only making 2 or 3 tackles a game, but he's a top corner that can cover your best guy and slow him down. So his dual threat is amazing. And CU this late in the season, I'm surprised too, Vincent. I didn't think we'd be talking about him, but I'm glad we are. All right, the next game we're going to look at is Boise State. And you mentioned Genty. We'll talk about him a little bit, but 8-1 right now. Boise State is undefeated in the Mountain West. The only other team that has a chance to finish undefeated along with them is Colorado State, but they go to San Jose. San Jose is 6-3. They're a pretty good team. They're 3-2 in the conference. Their defense, they have 18 sacks, 16 interceptions for them, and 6 fumble recoveries. You better bring your A game if you're going to go into San Jose State, unless you think you're going to just walk away with one. But I do think Boise will come away with this one. Vincent, your thoughts about this one?
I'm going to start with San Jose State. Very good football team, 6-3. They got a good player at the quarterback position, Mr. Emmett Brown. They got an outstanding receiver that's really getting a look from the NFL, and Nick Nash. Jordan Pollard is an excellent player on the defensive side of the ball as a corner. Boise State. Ashton Gente. I'm going to say this because chills are starting to go through my body, Harper. Must see TV. Boise State, 8-1. And I'm going to say this. If Boise State get in the college football playoffs, I don't want to see Boise State and Ashton Gente. Their quarterback, Maddox Matson, has surprised a lot of people. Because remember this, what was the gentleman out there at USC, the 5-star Malachi, I want to say Nelson transferred. Okay, he transferred to Boise State. And everybody thought he was going to be a guy under the center, but Madison Maddox beat him out. And I was saying to myself early on, is Boise State going to be that good? But then I didn't think they had a player like Ashton Gente. Now, Harper, I've been on this face of the world for 64 years. And you right behind me a few years. There's been a lot of great college football players that just make you want to get up out of your chair. Johnny Rogers, a guy I saw when I was at Arkansas, attending Gary Anderson, Anthony Carter, Tony Dorsett, Marshall Faulk, Billy Sims, a guy that can make you get up and throw moves out there on the field and look like their bodies were coming unglued. This young man, I'm not going to say anything because there's been a lot of great running backs that came in the National Football League, and the gentleman in front of me has played 11 great years. But I'm going to go and say it today. I don't care if I get some kickback behind it. Ashton Gente is a player that's going to be in that same class if he doesn't get hurt. And I'm going to leave you with this. Spencer Donaldson, the head coach, I said a couple of weeks ago, if I was some programs, some jobs going to come open, I'm looking at Boise. And all I'm going to say is this. Boise State, second game of the year, winning to Eugene. And they had Oregon, who's the number one team in the country, on the ropes. Lost 37-34. Ask Dan Lanning about Boise State and Ashton Gente. He put 192 on them. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, I was going to say the only loss that they had is against the number one team in the country. So that's a pretty good resume that you have for them. Maddox Madsen, 62% completions, 1,908 yards. He has 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's only been sacked 5 times. This kid can play quarterback, and he's going to help you win ball games. He's not going to turn it over, and he's not going to put you in a bad position. 227 yards is what they average in the air. That's 71st in the nation. 268 is what they average on the ground. That's number 2 in the country. And they average 43 points a ball game. That's number 2 in the country. Or I'm sorry, that's number 3. So they can play. Their defense has 40 sacks. They've got 4 interceptions and 6 fumble recoveries. So all around, they're doing a great job. And Ashton Gente has got 1,734 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 7.7 yards every time he touches the ball. 224 carries, Vincent. That's a lot. I'll tell you, that's a lot of carries for a young man, especially as you're going to try to wind up. And if you are in the playoff, you're going to have that guy as fresh as he can possibly be. But be an interesting ball game to watch there. Must-see TV. You're absolutely correct. Another game that we're going to have to watch, especially here in the South, is Tennessee brings their number 4 ranking in the country, and they're going against number 11 Georgia. At least the rankings have changed a little bit. I wrote this down on Monday night, but 8-1 Tennessee. The Vols are 5-1 in the SEC conference. Georgia is 7-2. Why would I want to watch this one, Vincent? Tell me.
Hey man, this game brings back to me personally a lot of memories. This morning it's very beautiful outside. We're doing a great show here on 100 Yards of Football. Very handsome young man in front of me, a very handsome young man producing the show today, and me getting the opportunity to talk about this game. Now, I was listening to somebody today, a good friend of the show. He has a show of his own. He had Herschel Walker on as his guest today. And it was talking about the game. They was talking about 1980. I had a sister, Bridget, that was a true freshman up there. And after that game, she called me and told me about Herschel Walker. And I remember that game vaguely. And I think about the game coming up Saturday night because I had 2 guys that I grew up with out of my neighborhood, Carlton Peoples and Mark Studaway, that played in that game. And I think about what's at stake at this game. As we say here at 100 Yards of Football, and my host here said something before we came on today, elimination. The Dogs, I never thought they would be in this position. But as Harper brought up in our pre-show meeting, they've played a real tough schedule, man. They have played a tough schedule. But I would say this. I want to give another ounce of apology to a young man who came out and said Georgia didn't have great players at the skill position. They said they had to take a step back. And I'm not going to bring his name up. His initials are DP, and I was very intimate over that. But I got to say he's right. I know a lot of people been killing Carson Palmer over the weeks, but I got to be honest with you. This Georgia offensive line has not played up to the capabilities of previous Georgia offensive lines doing a great run. Broderick Jones is in the NFL starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Amarius Mims is starting for the Cincinnati Bengals. And Cedric Van Pratt is up there bagging up there in Buffalo for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. My point of it is I never thought that coming to the season that Georgia would take a step back in the offensive line. And then I never thought that they would take a step back at the playmakers position. Dominique Lovett, Dylan Bell, Adrian Smith, and the young man, I want to say his name is Adam Humphrey, that came on from Vanderbilt. Y'all have left Carson Palmer down in several games because y'all dropping a lot of passes at a critical position. And Carson Palmer, as any quarterback, and Harper can help me out when I give it back to him, you're gonna kind of force the issue and try to make things happen. Then I'm gonna say this, Harper. I went back and watched that Ole Miss game, and in Kirby Smart tenure, I've never seen a Georgia team get dominated on both lines of scrimmage. Ole Miss beat them up physically, and defensively, their offensive line could not block Walter Nolan and the Ole Miss defensive lineman. I've never seen that in the Kirby Smart era. So when I look at it, and then Ole Miss was able to run the football a little bit too, I'm still going to say, as I said when the season started, Georgia is the best football team in the country. Kirby Smart has a habit of always rising to the occasion. They're playing in Athens. It's going to be alcohol in the air, and Athens is going to be on fire. Not to the Tennessee Volunteers, the second most team I love outside the University of Memphis basketball and the Dallas Cowboys. They have played great defense this year. Jane Pierce, Dominique Bailey, they have been really strong in the D-line. And I never thought Tennessee would be that well on defense because offensively, after their first two games when they put up, I think, a crazy number, close to 90 points, they have not really done anything offensively. Nico I has struggled. And I was hearing out those two games, he was going to be the next greatest quarterback in Tennessee football history. Well, that hasn't happened, and they don't even really know if he's going to play on Saturday night because he's fighting a concussion. So that being said, if Tennessee has to go with their backup quarterback, they don't have no chance to win this football game. No chance, because the strength of Tennessee offense is running the football with Dylan Simpson, one of the best backs in the country. And when I look at this football game, I'm going to say it very short and very precise. Who wins the line of scrimmage is going to win this football game. And right now, Georgia has the advantage because I still believe in Carson Beck. I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks going into the NFL draft. His offensive line has let him down several times this year, and most of his receivers has dropped some key pieces. And I never thought that the Georgia offense would take a step back when they lost Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers to the NFL. I was wrong. Apologies to DP here today on 100 Yards Football. Back to you, Harper.
Well, it'll be a great game, and it always seems to be one where Tennessee this time they'll be between the hedges. They are 8-1 overall, and the loser of this game against Georgia team that's 7-2 can pretty much kiss their chances of getting in the playoff goodbye. Last game we're going to look at is going to be Boston College. Now, why are you talking about Boston College? You're going to SMU. What's the big deal about going to Dallas and playing? Well, Boston College is 5-4, and they're going against number 14th ranked SMU. That's why. They're 8-1. SMU's got a team right now, and we haven't talked about them before, but they could be in the playoff. They are certainly going to be fighting for a chance to get there. They're 5-0 in their conference, and they got a guy named Kevin Jennings, their quarterback, 64% completion, 1,900 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's only been sacked 7 times, but their offense, they can score. They're 7th in the nation. They average 40 points a game. Tell me what Boston College can do to slow down the SMU Mustangs.
You're looking at Boston College. Bill O'Brien is the head coach. He did something that was very unusual, but Bill O'Brien, if you know him, he's kind of like a real feisty guy, former offensive coordinator at Alabama. Remember, he was the same one that recommended Jalen Merrill should change positions. Then at Houston, he was battling with the Andre Hopkins. So, and then when he was the New England Patriots as an assistant, he was battling also with Tom Brady. He changed quarterbacks. That's really unusual to me. He's going with a guy, Grayson James, who's coming over from Florida International, transfer to Boston College. And to me, to make that type of change is kind of in late in the season when you got the other quarterback, Thomas Casatos. I won't want to butcher his name, but a guy that had a big win over Florida State. That to me doesn't really seem right. But that's Bill O'Brien. They had a big win last week over Syracuse, 37-31, and Grayson James came in when the other quarterback got hurt and made some key plays in that football game. So this is a BC team that SMU you better be up for, because Bill O'Brien, remember, he's feisty and he said a lot of things in the media level. His team is going to be ready to play. Now, when you look at the SMU Mustangs, boy, Harper, can you think about Pony Express tours coming through them doors? Eric Dickerson, Craig James, Lance McElhaney, Bobby Leach. Those the times that I was at the University of Arkansas and watched them playing in 1981. That's a new Pony Express in town. Kevin Jennings. I got some phone calls yesterday from some fans of 100 Yards of Football. You know what they told me? You need to watch Kevin Jennings on Saturday because he's Michael Vick too, the most underrated football player in the country. And you know somebody else that gave him that title? Nick Saban. And then you think about, they got this player who I think is the #1 tight end in the country. His name is R.J. Maryland. Listen to that name one more time and say, look in the camera. R.J. Maryland. Bloodlines. Father Russell. 3-time Super Bowl champion. That money on Highland Avenue in Dallas. Oil money. Pony Express. They're making people realize. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, SMU's been impressive now. They're not as high as they are for no reason at all. They're 7th in the nation in scoring, averaging 40 points a game, and they only give up 21 right now. Their defense has 20 sacks, 13 interceptions. They've got 6 fumble recoveries. You mentioned Kevin Jennings and all the things that he does. Watch out for Brashard Smith also. Their running back, 906 yards, 6.5 yards per carry. He's got 11 touchdowns. Their team has 23 rushing touchdowns. So SMU can bring it. They average 196 yards a game. Should be a great game, and we hope that you enjoy watching them. Vincent, final thoughts going here into week number 12 with college football, and your thoughts here overall. Every week it gets a little bit tighter. It gets a little bit more important.
I can't, to be honest, I'm very excited how the season has went. I think college football has went to another level with this 12-team playoff. Obviously, the game of the day is all eyes in Athens, Georgia, Tennessee and Georgia, elimination game for Georgia. Never thought we'd reach this point, but this is a huge game in the Georgia football history. Because if they lose this football game, you better believe some people are going to start questioning Kirby Smart, which is crazy. Colorado, I got to give it up to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. What Colorado has said is amazing. And a very dangerous team on the outside looking at the college football rankings. You keep winning, you're going to get to that Big 12 championship game and look like you're on a collision course with BYU. And then, of course, the Pony Express. I'm going to say it one more time. 81, I sat up in Razorback Stadium watching Eric Dickerson and Craig James do their thing at a high level. And then what SMU has went through with the death penalty and how the program has stepped back is just unbelievable that where they at right now and how that program has came really, really far at this level. And remember, when they was accepted into the ACC, along with Stanford, there was a lot of people on the national level. SMU is coming out of the week AAC conference with Memphis, and I don't know with us at the ACC why we taking them in. Well, to all you people, including you over there at Clemson, because I know you listening over there. What's the name of the station? Tiger Roar. I'm not going to put the call letters out. What you saying about the Pony Express now? Them ponies look real good. Them ponies look real good. Kevin Jennings, have a blessed day. Back to the very talented Mr. Harper LeBel.
Well, there are plenty of games this week to watch. We've got 3 teams that are in the top 20 that won't be playing. Army being one of those. They got to get ready for Notre Dame. They got to bye this week. Indiana, who has Ohio State next. That'll be one we'll certainly want to talk about. And then Miami has the week off this week as well. They'll be playing Wake Forest next week. So games that we will talk about in the future. But for now, we just want to wish everybody a great day. We want to thank you for tuning in to our Super 7 this week 12. And for Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, for Vincent Turner, our host of the show, I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the College Football Super 7 edition. Have a great day, everybody.